There is not much relief from the wild spring weather in large swathes of the country this morning, with a warning of high winds across South Australia, Victoria and southern New South Wales. Wind gusts of more than 80 kilometres an hour have buffeted Victoria overnight, with trees downed in Melbourne. The same cold front caused havoc in South Australia too, and now New South Wales is forecast to be next in line.
Meantime, the floodwaters are continuing to soak parts of regional New South Wales. Cayman Gock is in Forbes for us, but let's go first to Lara Himes, who's monitoring developments elsewhere. Good morning, Lara. Take us through the latest.
Good morning, Lisa. Well, it may look like a beautiful sunny day in Sydney, and at the moment it is, but just like with a lot of weather stories, looks can be deceiving. We do have this cold front that is really coming through the centre of the country, and it's really taking up a lot of the southeast, and with it, it is going to bring some really strong winds. Now, it's not the temperature that you've really got to worry about in New South Wales and Sydney today. It's those strong winds that are coming through and the warnings associated with that. Now, we are expecting some of these wind gusts to be up to 90 kilometres per hour. We've already had some patches recording at 100 kilometres per hour in other parts of the country as part of the same system that is linked with this cold front, and there are a raft of warnings in place. Even on Sydney enclosed waters, there is a severe wind warning, and there's going to be a gale warning for a lot of the metropolitan coastline that is in place too. We did hear from the Weather Bureau today. There has been some light falls around these flood-affected areas of New South Wales, but it was only quite light and was only quite sparse. So that has been some welcome news today.
We do have a severe weather warning for damaging winds current all the way for lower parts of southeast South Australia, much of Victoria and up towards Illawarra and Sydney as well. With the cold front that moved through over the weekend, thankfully most of the rain actually fell across southern parts of Victoria and Tasmania. So some of those flood affected parts of New South Wales, including the central west, really only saw 1 or 2 millimetres, which is really good news, which means that there's no new rainfall flowing into these systems.
That is great news because it means the water is receding below the major flooding levels. Cayman, I want to bring you in. Tell us where you are, what the situation is.
Well, Lisa, I'm in Forbes, and the local authorities have told me that their main focus today will be in the recovery efforts. They'll be assessing the damage of many properties. Because the water has dropped significantly in the last few days, people are beginning to return to their homes. However, there are still buildings which are inaccessible. For example, the Wiradjuri Dreaming Centre behind me, that is still surrounded by moving floodwaters. I spoke with the founder and the current manager, who say they're both devastated because they've lost not just their home, but also this important cultural learning service. But there are still some towns where the water hasn't dropped. In Uabalong overnight, their makeshift levee had a breach and it had to be quickly filled with sandbags. And in the town of Condobolin, they have a 4-kilometre temporary levee which is separating the CBD from the Lachlan River, which has reached record heights. This is the worst flood that they've ever experienced. There are still some active parts of this natural disaster. The SES have told me that they're now putting preparations in place for Hillston. That's a town that's west of Griffith. And there's also an emergency evacuation order in place in Deniliquin, with residents told to leave by Wednesday morning. So this natural disaster has impacted the entire central west, and towns like Eugowra, which were decimated by this flood, were impacted by this wall of water which no one could prepare for. So services such as the post office and the bank and the school there all plan to open today to give that community some sense of normality, because it will take months for the clean-up and years with the impacts of this flood. Lisa?
Yeah, that is for sure. Cayman and Lara, thank you for bringing us up to speed.